Behold, the fiercest pirate to ever sail the seven seas, Captain Barnaby. Or at least, that's what the wanted posters say. If you look closely, you'll see the scourge of the ocean is currently sporting a rather dashing pair of inflatable armed floaties and clutching a life ring like it is the last piece of treasure on Earth. And the sea? It's as calm as a puddle. But to Barnaby, every ripple is a tentacle of the great blue monster, waiting to drag him down to the depths. His ship, the Landlubber's Lament, is a marvel of naval engineering. If you consider a ship designed to avoid water a marvel, it's got extra high railings, a double-reinforced crow's nest, and a main deck that's been waterproofed more times than a royal submarine. From the very center of this deck, a spot he marked with a large chalk X, Barnaby spends his days. He's got a magnificent spyglass, polished to a gleam, and through it, he gazes at distant shores, dreaming of mountains of gold, glittering jewels, and chests overflowing with doubloons. The dream is so close, yet so terrifyingly far, separated from him by that vast, wobbly, and very, very wet expanse. His crew, a motley bunch of sailors who long ago accepted their captain's little quirk, mostly just played cards and fished. They knew the routine. Captain Barnaby would shout orders from his safe zone. Hoist the mainsail, but gently. We don't want to make any sudden movements. Or swab the deck, but use a dry mop. No water, not a drop. They navigated the world this way, drifting on gentle currents, following coastlines so closely they could almost borrow a cup of sugar from the people on shore. It was, to be fair, a very relaxing form of piracy, more like a scenic cruise with the occasional, very polite, request for treasure. Barnaby's maps were unlike any other pirates. Instead of X marks the spot on deserted islands, his were filled with notes like beware, slightly deeper blue patch here, or possible splash zone during high tide. He had charts of underwater kelp forests not for navigation, but because they looked like slimy green hands reaching up. He was a master of his domain, as long as that domain remained strictly on the wooden planks beneath his feet. He even invented a special long-handled grabber for retrieving anything that fell overboard, a task that required the steady hands of his first mate, a man named Finn who found the whole situation endlessly amusing. One morning, Barnaby was in the middle of a particularly intense daydream involving a golden throne and a parrot that could count coins when he saw it. Through his spyglass, on a nearby island, there was a glint. Not just any glint. It was the unmistakable, heart-stopping glint of sunlight hitting polished gold. His heart pounded in his chest, a frantic drumbeat of greed versus fear. The treasure was there. He could almost smell the sweet, metallic scent of wealth. But between him and that glorious fortune was 100 yards of his greatest enemy, the big blue wobbly thing. He paced his chalk circle, muttering to himself, there must be a way. Think Barnaby, think a bridge too long, a catapult too risky, a really, really long rope. He considered asking his crew to swim over and get it. But what kind of legendary pirate captain sends others to fetch his treasure? The shame? No, he had to do this himself. He just needed the perfect plan, a plan so brilliant, so daring, so dry. He spent the rest of the day formulating his strategy, sketching diagrams in his logbook that looked more like engineering blueprints than a pirate's treasure map. He was going to conquer that island, and he was going to do it without getting a single drop of water on his magnificent boots. The next morning, Operation Dry Feet was a go. The crew, with a collective shrug, followed his bizarre instructions. They lowered the anchor, but not all the way into the water. Instead, they dangled it just above the surface, creating a psychological barrier for the sea monster, as Barnaby put it. Then came the main event, the construction of what Barnaby called the Path of Courage. It was essentially a very long, very wobbly gangplank made from every spare piece of wood on the ship, stretching from the deck towards the sandy shore. It didn't quite reach, leaving a daunting 10-foot gap of shallow water. Barnaby looked at the gap, then at his boots, then back at the gap. This was the final boss. But as he stood there, gathering his courage for the leap of a lifetime, the sky began to darken. The calm sea stirred, and the gentle breeze became a menacing howl. A storm was rolling in, fast, The crew started scrambling, securing the sails, battening the hatches. But Barnaby was frozen. The blue monster was waking up. It was angry. The ship began to rock, and the waves, once gentle laps, were now greedy hands slapping against the hull. "It knows," Barnaby shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at the churning water. "It knows I'm here for the gold." The first big wave crashed against the side of the landlubber's lament, sending a spray of salt water high into the air. And then it happened. The single, most terrifying event of Captain Barnaby's entire career. A single, solitary drop of cold, salty seawater arched through the sky in what felt like slow motion, and landed right on the toe of his left boot. For a moment, there was silence. The storm raged, the crew shouted, but in Barnaby's world, everything stopped. He stared at the glistening bead of water on the black leather. It was a violation, a personal attack. The monster had touched him. A primal scream erupted from his lungs, a sound so filled with terror and rage that even the storm seemed to pause for a second. "That's IT!" he roared, his fear instantly replaced by a wave of pure, unadulterated fury. "Nitrogen monoxide more. If I can't sail on the water, I'll sail on the land." With a crazed look in his eyes, he sprinted to the ship's wheel. "Full sail!" he bellowed. "Aim for the beach!" His first mate, Finn, stared at him, bewildered. "Captain, you can't sail a ship onto a beach." But Barnaby was beyond reason. He was a man possessed. "I am Captain Barnaby. I sail where I please." With the wind and waves now conveniently pushing them from behind, the landlubber's lament surged forward. The crew held on for dear life as the ship plowed through the shallow water and, with a tremendous groan of protesting timber and a shower of sand, ground to a halt, listing heavily on the beach. They were shipwrecked. Intentionally, Barnaby was thrown from the wheel, tumbling across the now sharply tilted deck and landing in a heap near the railing. He sat up, dazed, covered in sand, and looked around. He was on the island. His ship was on the island. He was safe. He was dry. He had done it. He had defeated the blue monster by leaving its domain entirely. A slow, triumphant grin spread across his face. He'd shown it who was boss. He dusted himself off, straightened his pirate hat, and marched confidently down the gangplank, which was now just a short ramp onto the sand. He pulled out his map, which he'd cleverly drawn based on his spyglass observations. 10 paces from the crooked palm tree, then 5 paces towards the big gray rock. He followed his own instructions, shovel in hand. He dug, and after only a few minutes, his shovel hit something solid wood. With frantic energy, he cleared the sand away to reveal a large, barnacle-encrusted treasure chest. He heaved it open, and his eyes widened. It was real. Gold coins, sparkling rubies, pearl necklaces, and golden goblets gleamed in the afternoon sun. He'd done it. He had found the treasure without succumbing to the horrors of the sea. He let the coins run through his fingers, the metallic clinking the sweetest music he'd ever heard. His crew gathered around, cheering. They had just witnessed the single most ridiculous and successful act of piracy in history. Barnaby stood tall, chest puffed out, a pile of gold at his feet, and his high and dry ship behind him. He looked out at the ocean, which was now calming down, and gave it a smug wink. He was Captain Barnaby, the world's first and greatest land pirate. And from that day on, he decided treasure hunting was much more civilized when you could just walk to it. Thanks so much for watching our story today. If you enjoyed Captain Barnaby's landlocked adventure, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the high seas and sands. See you next time.